Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In our third module of the History Through the Muslim Eyes series, titled Birth of a New Nation, we discussed many events from the seerah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Our purpose was to understand the significance of those events on the future course of history. Let's summarize those events so that we can freshen up our memories. We began the third module by discussing the sociology of Arabia. We first studied the religious demographics of the Arabian Peninsula. We saw that the three main religious groups that existed in the Arab society were the polytheists, the Jews, the Christians. And a fourth minor group that existed was known as the monotheists, Hanifs. We also saw that the Arabian society was divided into tribes. Each tribe was united by a strong family bond. Each tribe managed its own internal affairs without any significant external influence. We also saw that there was no central government in Arabia, no king or pharaoh. The Arab society was tribal in nature and had a general contempt for central authority who charges taxes. Slaves were a normal part of the society. Like non-living things, they were treated as personal property and had no rights. Then we moved to the specific status of Makkah, which made it the most prominent and wealthiest of all cities in Arabia. The presence of Kaaba, built by Ismail alayhi salam, was a place of pilgrimage for the whole of Arabia. This gave Makkah the highest religious status among all Arab cities. Secondly, the geographic location of Makkah was situated along the trade routes between Yemen and Syria, as well as between Persia and Egypt. Hence, many trade caravans passed through the city and stopped by, bringing in tax for the Makkans. With both factors combined, Makkah became the wealthiest city in Arabia. Apart from the various events in the life of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we discussed the important takeaways from these events. We learned that character is of utmost importance for presenting any new ideology and for people to accept it. This is what we saw in Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's character even before he received prophethood. We also saw that the apparent difficulties may be blessings in disguise, as they train us to successfully handle the future events. This was evident in the trials faced by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the form of loss of his loved ones. We also discussed about the psychology of certain people who are reserved and thoughtful. Such people are called introverts. On the other hand, are the socially active and expressive people who are called extroverts. This we learn from the acceptance of Islam by introverts like Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu and extroverts like Umar and Hamza radiallahu anhu. Another lesson we learned was that when we present a new idea, we should first share it with people whom we trust. And after gaining some support, we should present it to the general public. Initially, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was ordered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to spread the message of Islam to his close circle of friends and acquaintances. And later, public preaching was ordered. Another important lesson we learned from the seerah was the way opponents sabotage new ideas. Mockery is the first step, which means to discourage the messenger, followed by distraction so that the message is diluted and confuses the listener. And then propaganda by spreading falsehood so that people do not believe it even though it appeals to them. Then the opponent steps up their opposition by boycotting both financially and socially. And when everything else fails, by attempting to murder and crush the new idea. In the third module, we also discussed the changes that came in the life of the Muslims as a result of the Hijrah or the migration to Medina. In Makkah, the Muslims were the subjects of Quraysh, whereas in Medina, the Muslims were ruled by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the one who was from among them. In Makkah, the Muslims suffered oppression at the hands of the Quraysh, but in Medina, they had all freedom to practice their religion. In Makkah, the Muslims were not permitted to react and retaliate to the persecution, lest they may be wiped out by the majority Quraysh. Whereas in Medina, Muslims were allowed, in fact, ordered to hit back and take revenge for the wrong done to them earlier, and go to wars to defend their property as well as the Islamic State. In Makkah, the message of Islam was restricted in around Makkah, whereas in Medina, the message got far and wide to the whole of Arabia. In Makkah, if a person chose to be a Muslim, he had to be ready for some persecution. And therefore, unless and until someone was 100% convinced about the truth of Islam, he was not willing to leave the old religion. So in Makkah, there were only two kinds of people: the disbelievers or kuffar, and the believers or Muslims. In Medina, however, it was seen as an advantage to be a Muslim, even if someone was not convinced. The reason being that the leadership was in the hands of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So now there emerged another category of people, the munafiqun, or the hypocrites, who were Muslims on the outside and kuffar on the inside. In Makkah and Medina, the major subject of the Quran also changed. In Makkah, the subject mainly revolved around strengthening the Iman or belief, especially the belief in Tawheed or oneness of Allah, and the accountability in Akhirah or the hereafter. Whereas in Medina, the emphasis was on the specific deeds to be done. In Makkah, the focus was on the quality of deeds or doing it with the right intention. In Medina, when the Islamic State was established, the detailed rules were laid, both in the private life of an individual, the minimum quantity of deeds, and at the social and state level. That is, the various rules that dictate how the Islamic society and state should function. As you can see, that if we were to identify one event that had the most impact on the future of Islam, it was the Hijrah. And this is why later, under the second Caliph, Umar radiallahu anhu, Hijrah was used as the reference point for starting the Islamic calendar. Hijrah was the event that altogether changed the course of Muslim history. With this, we have summarized the third module of the HTME series. In the fourth module, titled From Irrelevant to Dominant, we will discuss events from the life of Medina, as well as the first two rightly guided caliphs, highlighting the impact of those events on the future course of history for the Muslims. Thank you for watching, and Assalamu alaikum.